Buen día. Es posible que ya han visto Druglawed en el Documentary Edge Festival en Auckland o Wellington o en el Reframe Film Festival en Canadá. Si no han visto, se trata de una versión especial de la parte 7 de Druglawed, que estamos lanzando en apoyo de la comunidad de cannabis medicinal no solo en Nueva Zelanda, pero todo el mundo. Acceso a los medicamentos es un derecho fundamental, un derecho que los gobiernos de todo el mundo están negando a sus ciudadanos. Esta es quizás la injusticia más atroz de la guerra contra las drogas. Como parte de la producción de la secuela, que viajamos a Israel para filmar el programa más grande y más científicamente avanzado del mundo, Nueva Zelanda o cualquier otro país puede seguir este ejemplo, haciendo documentales, especialmente a escala internacional. Es muy costoso. Apoye nuestra producción comprometiéndose a nuestra campaña de crowdfunding. Si tenemos una campaña activa en este momento o cualquier en otro momento al adquirir el DVD o descarga de druglawed.com. Todos los ingresos van a ir a la continuación de la producción. Gracias por su apoyo.
Cannabis is one of the most valuable medicines we possess.
I think the story of cannabis is the saddest story of all because it was a medicine. Queen Victoria was given it, she used it for period pain. It was a useful medicine, and pretending it wasn't a medicine in the 1961 convention has stopped a huge tranche of research into all the potential therapeutic benefits. The cannabis plant has got more psychoactive chemicals than probably any other plant, and many of them may be useful therapeutically, not just in brain disorders, but also in cancers, etc. And almost none of that research has been done because the drug's illegal. I think that is the greatest scandal of all, actually.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for at least 4,000 years that we know of. Like, we have written records from the Chinese dynasties that cannabis was a very, very useful medicine. 4,000 years. It's only really been since Prohibition that we haven't had access to it.
Queen Victoria, 7 children, she swore by cannabis. She said it was a wonderful treatment for the pains and distress of childbirth. It was very popular in Britain until about the 1950s. And then as soon as it started being used for recreation rather than medicine, the government clamped down on it. We got rid of it in the UK as a medicine in 1971. And since then, we've been prosecuting people with chronic, debilitating illnesses who've got no other options but to grow cannabis or import it. We've been prosecuting them in a really cruel and unnatural way.
To sustain prohibition, which is inherently cruel, putting people in cages, enormous numbers of people, you need a population that's scared of these drugs. For illegal drugs, use equals abuse. For prescription drugs, use equals medicine.
When you put marijuana in context, it's one of the lower risk things that people could do. And in fact, the DEA's own administrative law judge almost 30 years ago said that marijuana is the safest therapeutically active substance known to man. That statement was true then, it's still true now. But finally, people are realizing it.
If pharmaceutical companies are not already frightened about the widespread access of marijuana, they should be. Because marijuana will replace, for many people, a whole shelf of prescription medications that come at a much higher cost.
To me, medicinal cannabis is life-saving because I couldn't possibly do 905 doses of chemo without it. I do a dose a day for 3 days every 3 weeks to try and control this parasite that has destroyed my bone marrow. And the only way for me to have relief, instant relief within 3 to 4 minutes, is medicinal cannabis. And I'm absolutely convinced that this has been part of my wellness strategy that's kept me alive for the 17 years longer than they said I would live. Using medicinal cannabis has prevented me from having to take other chemicals, which the side effects will further be detrimental to my body.
Basically, I've been able to get rid of 10 lots of tablets that were doing me more harm than good. I don't need to take sleeping pills, I don't need to take nausea pills. Plaquenil I don't need to take anymore. The ibuprofen and anti-inflammatories, I don't need to take any of that. I just have a smoke before I go to bed and puts me relatively pain-free, and it gives me movement. Because the arthritis hits all your ribs and stuff, so it helps with your breathing as well. Just eases everything so you can move, you can function. And even my doctor will go so far as says he knows I smoke, and he turned around and told me if he could prescribe it, he would.
There's an interesting paradox, isn't there? The most harmful drug we thought was heroin, and yet it's used as a medicine, or morphine. It's used widely as a medicine. Cannabis we rated halfway down the risk of harms, and it's not available as a medicine. People that need drugs to reduce suffering, like multiple sclerosis sufferers who get prison sentences for growing their own cannabis, suffer even more because of the criminalization of their behavior. I have patients. I have one person. He's a magistrate. He's got severe spasticity, untreated by other medicines. Desperate to use cannabis. But of course, if he uses cannabis as a magistrate, he'll lose his job. The way the British, and to some extent you, have actually attacked these people, and we don't allow them now to say that they were to use a defence that they needed to because they were ill. This last government in Britain took away the defence of illness for use deliberately to actually penalise cannabis users of any sort, and I'm really angry about that. I think it's cruel.
The science and the politics are really moving in different tracks, essentially. And what's happened in the political process is it's become quite stuck.
Making the leaf available is simply a backdoor way of making it more widely available to everyone. So no support.
It's essential for me. If I haven't got cannabis, I'm dead. All right, within not very long after not having any cannabis, I'm going to be dead. Yeah. So that's the cannabis. I use it as a poultice on my leg for nerve damage. My whole body goes into spasms. Sellotape a bit of cannabis on there. It stops it straight away, and I can go to sleep in about 20 minutes. Otherwise, I'm awake pretty much all night with it. The New Zealand Medical Association actually supports it. And it's actually in the law, in the Misuse of Drugs Act, that the doctors can prescribe it. So if doctors prescribe it, then that's actually complying with the law. And it even complies with international law, which is the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs. As part of that actually says cannabis is to be made available for medical use. So, we shouldn't be having such a battle getting the only medicine that works for us. It shouldn't be such a battle, but it really is a struggle for a lot of people. A lot of the people in Green Cross are elderly people, and, especially elderly ladies and stuff like that. They just can't go trucking off down to the local gang house and teddy house and get some cannabis. A lot of them can't even walk. So they have a real struggle. And these are the people that, medicinal cannabis, it shouldn't be a problem for them.
Currently, I'm on pain relief that I don't agree with, I don't like. It's extremely dangerous. I really believe in cannabis as a medication, which historically, with me being partly trained as a pharmacist, I'm having it sitting on my shelves in the old days. I'm comfortable with thinking of cannabis as a medicine and always have thought of it that way. This is my monitor for while I'm on home detention. I've got a year sentence of home detention. The whole thing is so ridiculous. I was extremely angry when cannabis was removed from my life forcibly, and I kept ranting at doctors and nurses about what I need and what I want as cannabis. I trust it as pain relief, and they listened to me and agreed with me.
We're being victimised more than people that are really doing a lot of harm to the society. It's upside down. It's madness. Changes to the laws need to happen. All right, heaps and heaps of people are getting convicted and going to jail. A lot of people are sick, they're depressed. If the police raid them, they stand to lose their house, they stand to lose everything they got. They go to jail.
Stop looking at this as such a small paradigm and thinking that everybody that uses cannabis is a criminal. I just find that absurd.
I have been punished very severely for something that should not be being regarded in this way. I consider cannabis to be a medicine. I consider the law to be out of step. I think it's out of step with the general public now.
Here in New Zealand, there's actually a provision within the Misuse of Drugs Act allowing patients to get access to cannabis as medicine, providing they get approval from the Ministry of Health. And how many people have been approved in 4 decades? 0.
In all these years, no one's managed to get permission from the Ministry of Health. 30, 40 years or however long we've had prohibition, no one's managed to get it. So, what does that say to you? It, basically says that we're dealing with the corrupt government. The mere fact that's written there must mean that you can get it. But you can't get it. They're not even complying with their own laws.
I feel very angry that the current cannabis laws have this perverse effect of denying access of medicinal cannabis to people who need it.
Pharmaceutical companies that have been trying to develop isolated cannabinoids and non-smoking delivery systems like Sativex, like Marinol, those drugs are inferior in terms of efficacy and multiples of the cost. Some pharmaceutical companies, particularly GW Pharmaceuticals, hired as one of their spokesperson somebody who is the deputy drug czar in the United States, and her purpose was to demonize the plant and to say that this company had overcome the obstacles and overcome the harm of the plant by extracting the cannabinoids and giving it to you in a way that wouldn't hurt your lungs. And then they want marijuana to be kept away from becoming a medicine. Marijuana will be a generic medication. It's going to be extremely cheap, and it will be preferred by most patients, either smoked or vaporized, over all these isolated cannabinoids, which is not to say that these isolated cannabinoids shouldn't exist. Patients should have options. That's our fundamental view, and that the options can include what the pharmaceutical industry produces, but they should also include using the plant that they can grow themselves.
Why can't citizens in a free country grow their own medicine? It's an absolute travesty of justice that we can't do that. Why won't the government stand up and let people that have genuine need grow their own medicine? You have to ask yourself the question. Big Pharmaceutical obviously doesn't want it to happen, so who benefits, who doesn't benefit from the public being able to grow their own medicine? Well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? And big pharmaceutical companies are going to be very anti allowing you and me to grow our own medicine and heal ourselves. It's dogma, it's fear, it's very powerful lobby groups funded by big pharmaceutical companies.